The day we moved into the Victorian mansion, it felt like we had stepped into a fairy tale. Sarah and I had always dreamed of leaving the bustling city behind and raising Emily and Tommy in a place where they could roam free, connect with nature, and simply be children. As we pulled up the gravel driveway, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the grandeur of our new home. The kids were ecstatic. Tommy, our adventurous 8-year-old, immediately set off to explore every nook and cranny of the house, while Emily, our thoughtful 12-year-old, was captivated by the towering trees that surrounded the property. Sarah and I exchanged a knowing glance. This was exactly what we had searched for. As we stepped through the front door, I couldn't help but be struck by the house's charm and character. The high ceilings, ornate moldings, and intricate woodwork spoke of a time long past, and I was eager to uncover the stories that lie within these walls. Over the following days, we settled into our new life, slowly unpacking and transforming the house into a home. The children quickly claimed their rooms, excitedly choosing paint colors and arranging their furniture. Sarah and I worked tirelessly to restore the house to its former glory, eagerly anticipating the day when it would truly feel like ours. In the evenings, we would gather as a family in the grand living room, the flickering fire of the fireplace casting a warm glow on our faces. It was in these moments that I felt a deep sense of contentment and gratitude for the life we were building. As the days turned into weeks, we continued to explore the house and its grounds. The kids discovered a hidden tree house in the woods, a relic from the previous family, and spent hours playing and imagining secret adventures. Sarah and I marveled at the intricate details of the house, from the ornate carvings on the fireplace mantel to the secret compartments in the library bookcases. Each day in our new home brought fresh discoveries and a growing sense of belonging. We felt as though we were not just living in the house, but becoming a part of its history. Beknownst to us, however, the house had its own secrets, and our fairy tale was about to take a darker turn. As the weeks went by, the novelty of our new home had worn off, but something felt different. It started with little things, so insignificant that we could easily brush them off as fragments of our imagination or quirks of an old house. But as these strange occurrences became more frequent, it became increasingly difficult to ignore the unsettling feeling that was creeping into our lives. One evening, while Sarah and I were in the kitchen preparing dinner, we heard a door slam shut upstairs. We exchanged puzzled glances, but dismissed it as the wind, despite the still air outside. However, when it happened again the following night, and then again the night after that, we couldn't help but feel uneasy. The doors weren't the only issue. We began to notice other odd events around the house. The lights would flicker ominously, sometimes even going out completely for a few seconds before turning back on, leaving us momentarily in the darkness. The television, too, seemed to have a mind of its own, switching on and off without warning, often in the middle of the night. Each time something strange occurred, Sarah and I would share a worried glance, but tried to rationalize it as best we could. After all, the house was old, and old houses were known to have their quirks. But as we whispered reassurances to each other, we couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. Our children began to feel it too. Emily, who had always been so brave and independent, started to complain about hearing footsteps outside her bedroom at night. She said they sounded heavy and deliberate, as if someone were pacing the hallway. Tommy, on the other hand, started to have trouble sleeping, claiming that his toys would move by themselves. Sarah and I didn't know what to make of these claims. We tried to comfort our children, offering logical explanations for the strange happenings, but we knew that we were grasping at straws. We could see the fear in their eyes, and it was becoming harder and harder to deny that there was something truly unsettling about our once dreamy home. As the days went on, the atmosphere in the house grew heavier, as if a dark cloud had settled over us. Our fairy tale was slowly turning into a nightmare, and we couldn't help but feel that we were no longer alone in our own home. As the hauntings escalated, our once warm and inviting home became a place of dread and unease. It seemed that every day brought a new, unexplainable event, each more terrifying than the last. Despite our best efforts to maintain a sense of normalcy, it was clear that our family was being tormented by something we could not comprehend. Sarah and I began to grow increasingly concerned for our children. Their once bright eyes now held a shadow of fear, and their laughter was replaced by tense whispers. We knew we had to do something, anything, to protect them and ease their worries. One evening, after putting the children to bed, Sarah and I sat down in the dimly lit living room. The flickering candlelight casted eerie shadows on the walls. We decided it was time to discuss the strange occurrences openly, to share our experiences, and to try to make sense of what was happening. I recounted the time when I had found my tools scattered across the garage floor, even though I had put them away neatly just the night before. Sarah spoke of the time when she had been alone in the house, and the piano in the parlor had started playing by itself. The keys moved as if pressed by invisible fingers. As we shared our stories, we began to realize that there was a pattern to the events, an escalation of intensity that seemed to be leading to something we couldn't yet understand. But one thing was clear: we could no longer ignore the realities of the situation. We needed to find answers, to understand what was happening in our home, and to put an end to the fear that had taken hold of our family. In a desperate attempt to regain control, we agreed that we would research the history of the Ashford Manor to try and uncover any clues that might help us make sense of the haunting. We knew it was a long shot, but we clung to the hope that understanding the past might help us reclaim our present. With heavy hearts and a sense of determination, we set out on our quest for answers. Little did we know that our search would only deepen the mystery and lead us further into the darkness that had descended upon our once beloved home. The storm arrived without warning, a tempest of wind and rain that shook the very foundation of Ashford Manor. As the clouds gathered and the sky darkened, an ominous feeling settled over the house, as if nature itself was reflecting the terror that had taken hold of our family. That evening, as the storm raged outside, We huddled together in the living room. The sound of the howling wind and pounding rain nearly drowned out our voices. The children clung to Sarah and me, their fear palpable as they sought comfort in our embrace. Suddenly, with a flash of lightning and a deafening crack, the electricity went out, plunging us into darkness. The room was swallowed by an inky blackness, the only light coming from the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated the fear in my family's eyes. It felt as if the walls were closing in on us, and the weight of the darkness threatened to suffocate us. Desperate to regain some semblance of control, I fumbled through the dark, searching for the gas lamps and candles we had stowed away for emergencies. As I lit them, the flickering flame cast eerie shadows on the walls, doing little to ease the sense of foreboding that hung in the air. In that dimly lit room, with the storm raging outside, the haunting presence in our home seemed to grow stronger, feeding off of the fear that gripped us all. The air grew thick with tension, and we could feel the darkness pressing in on us from all sides. As we huddled together, trying to ward off the fear, we began to hear sounds that we could not attribute to the storm. Footsteps echoed through the empty hallways, doors creaked open and slammed shut, and distant whispers seemed to float through the air, carried on the wind. The haunting had reached a fever pitch, and it was clear that something sinister was at play. In that moment, I knew that we were no longer safe within the walls of Ashford Manor. The darkness had taken hold of our home, and it seemed intent on consuming us all. But as the storm continued to rage outside, we were trapped, prisoners in our own home, as we faced the terror that had been unleashed upon us. With each passing moment, the paranormal activity intensified, seemingly feeding off of our fear and desperation. It felt as though the darkness was tightening its grip on us, and I couldn't help but wonder if we would ever escape the nightmare that had befallen our once beloved home. As the storm continued to batter Ashford Manor, we huddled together in the living room, clinging to each other for comfort and support. The flickering light from the gas lamps and candles barely penetrated the oppressive darkness, casting sinister shadows that seemed to dance and taunt us from the corners of the room. In the midst of our terror, Emily, pale and trembling, rose from her seat to fetch a blanket, hoping to find some small measure of comfort in its warmth. As she crossed the room, her foot caught the edge of a rug, causing her to stumble and lose her balance. In that split second, time seemed to slow as she reached out to steady herself, her hand making contact with one of the gas lamps perched precariously on a side table. The lamp toppled over, shattering on the floor and igniting the rug in a sudden burst of flames. Panic erupted as the fire spread rapidly, fueled by the old wood and furnishings of the house. Sarah and I grabbed the children and attempted to smother the flames with blankets and cushions, but it quickly became clear that the fire was beyond our control. Choking on the thick smoke and blinded by the rapidly growing inferno, we made the heart-wrenching decision to abandon our home. Clutching the hands of our terrified children, we fought our way through the smoke-filled rooms, desperately searching for an escape. As we stumbled out into the storm, the cold rain drenched us to the bone, We turned to see our once grand home becoming devoured by the hungry flames. The fire roared with an almost malevolent fury, as if it had been waiting for this moment to be unleashed upon Ashford Manor. With heavy hearts and tear-filled eyes, we called the fire department, watching helplessly as the last remnants of our dream home crumbled before our eyes. What we didn't know was that the true horror of our ordeal was far from over. In the midst of the chaos and destruction, a chilling revelation awaited us, one that would shake us to our very core. As the fire raged on, the firefighters arrived, working tirelessly to extinguish the inferno that had once been our home. We stood at a safe distance, wrapped in blankets provided by kind neighbors who had gathered to offer support in the face of our tragedy. Sarah held Emily and Tommy close, tears streaming down her face as we watched our dreams go up in smoke. Despite the devastation, I couldn't help but feel a small measure of relief, as if the fire was cleansing our home of the darkness that had taken hold. As the flames began to weaken, the haunting image of Ashford Manor, now a charred and smoldering shell, was a sight that would haunt me for the rest of my life. But it was what happened next that would forever remain etched into my memory. A chilling revelation that would confirm the true nature of the horror we had faced. As I stared at the burning remnants of our home, I suddenly noticed movement in one of the upstairs windows. A figure of a little girl appeared, her pale face illuminated by the flickering light of the flames. Her eyes were dark and empty, yet they seemed to bore into my soul as she stared directly at us. Sarah and the children noticed her too, their eyes widening in terror as they realized the implications of what they were seeing. This was no ordinary haunting. This was something far more sinister, a malevolent presence that had sought to destroy us from within. As we watched, frozen in terror, the fire began to consume the room where the girl stood. In an instant, she disappeared, swallowed by the flames as if she had never been there at all. But her image was forever seared into our minds, a chilling reminder of the evil that had taken hold of our once beloved home. As the firefighters finally managed to extinguish the last of the flames, we were left with nothing but questions. Who was this girl, and why had she haunted our home? What had drawn her to us, and what had fueled her malevolent intentions? All questions we had, but no answers. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Until next time, stay spooked.